Welcome back to Split the Party. As always, I'm your host, Steve Osmond, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about why it was great to be a nerd in the year 2015. Obviously, I don't have the time to cover everything. In movies, in television shows, it was phenomenal. We've got the return of Star Wars, The Force Awakens. Haven't seen it yet. Really, really looking forward to it. Not only does The Force awaken on the movie theaters, but also it returned to Marvel Comics. Star Wars is back at home. I know we talked about this earlier in the season. I'm really, really excited about it. It's fantastic to have them back. That alone right there makes 2015 a big year. While we're talking about comics, in the big two in Marvel and DC, we saw a huge rewriting of their universe, their style of telling stories, how their heroes and their villains are living. We've got Convergence and Secret Wars. Convergence, in my opinion, missed the mark a little bit, but they still did what they were trying to do. They rewrote their story. They took it back to zero, and they took it back to a zero where everybody's on the same page. It's changed. They're welcoming in new readers while still paying homage to the people who have been there for years and years. They didn't do away with fan service, but they are trying to establish a new paradigm. They didn't do it as fantastic a job as Secret Wars, but they did a good job. Secret Wars, I have to be honest, I still haven't read the 200 plus comics that are part of this event all the way through, but I'm working on it, and I love everything. The fact that they went through all the classic styles of comic book storytelling. There are romance comics, fantasy comics, horror, sci-fi, the superheroes from all these different dimensions. They have basically created a love letter to comicdom from this point back and are moving forward at this point with, again, a whole new paradigm, and they've done a really fantastic job. Again, just that makes 2015 a really big year. And then board games. Now, obviously, I love board games. I talk quite a bit about them. I don't have everything that came out in 2015 because I don't have that kind of money. But I did put out some of the big ones, specifically some of the licensed ones here. Legendary, everybody was really excited about the Legendary Encounters Predator coming out because Aliens was fantastic. Predator allows you to not only complete, play as the Predators, but also start doing the Alien versus Predator storylines. Secret Wars itself, while coming out in the comics, was also coming out for Marvel Legendary, which was a really big deal. They came out with a Dark City-sized expansion for Volume 1. Volume 2 is also out now. So you've got another 700 cards just from this big epic storyline that you can play in the game. So that's just for the Marvel Legendary license. They brought back a really popular collectible card game as a not living card game. Marvel Versus is back. It's a fantastic game. I own this one. I've played it a number of times. I know we reviewed it. I really like it. This was a great game that came out in 2015. Exploding Kittens, Kittens in a Blender. This, I'm not sure how I feel about this game. It's actually fun. It's Russian roulette with kittens, but this game broke absolutely every single Kickstarter record that it could possibly get its hand on. It just went around kicking, beating records, and maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so this is not that one?
No.
Oh, this is Kittens in a Blender. I'm thinking of Exploding Kittens. We're going to pretend I didn't hold that game up here. Exploding Kittens. That was the big deal this year. That's embarrassing. Exploding Kittens blew away all the records. They made more money for that game to design it than the budget of like the Blair Witch Project, I believe. It's ridiculous. You could have made a movie for what they had to make a little Russian roulette card game with about 100 and some cards in it. But it's fun. It's worth picking up. Really big news again in 2015. Pandemic Legacy. The reason I've got this up here, Pandemic has been a very popular game. So has Risk Legacy and the evolutionary style games like Pathfinder Adventure card game. Games that every time you go back, they have evolved based on your last playthrough. This year, Pandemic decided to jump on board with Pandemic Legacy. Really fantastic idea. So your planet is evolving. You're not going to just play a single hour or 45-minute long game, eradicate disease, and everything's done. You go through, and every time you play it, the diseases themselves have evolved. The face of the planet as far as how all of that is panning out has changed, and you're playing a slightly different game of it every time. I really, really like games like this, and I'm glad that Pandemic's jumped on board. Ghostbusters. Cryptozoic, as you probably picked up, it's one of my favorite companies as far as licensed games go. They're not necessarily always breaking new ground. What they are doing is making really, truly fun games with things that remind me of my childhood and why I love being a nerd. The Ghostbusters board game is based on the cartoons, the movies, the comics. They took from all of the history of these characters and made a really fun board game to play. This one's also worth picking up, and again, great reason to be a nerd in 2015. Dice Masters exploded in 2015. We've seen releases of X-Men, Avengers, Dungeons and Dragons got on board, Yu-Gi-Oh got on board. They've got Spider-Man. They've got the Justice League of America. It has come on the scene, and they were already the #1 creator of Dice. WizKids, right? WizKids were already the #1 creator of Dice. Now they're making this great collectible dice game based loosely on their Quarriors game, and it has exploded onto the scene, done a really great job, and stepped into the collectible game market in force. There are a number of, again, going back to the movies. We've got the Star Trek movie or Star Wars movie. We have Ant-Man that came out this year, which kicked off Phase 3 for Marvel. We have the television shows for Marvel that have come out on Netflix. DC has really been making a big push with television shows on syndicated and cable television. It has been a really fantastic year to be a nerd, regardless of what your flavor is. I'm proud to call myself a nerd, and I look forward to seeing what they're going to continue to do with all of these games and with new games coming into 2016. I think that's about all I got for you now. I know that I've missed things, so what I'd like you guys to do is go on Facebook, go on our website, let us know what you got in 2015, what you picked up that you were really excited about, what you're hoping that somebody's going to put in your stocking or throw under the tree for you. Let us know why you think it was great to be a nerd in 2015. And as always, I'll see you in the Nerdverse. But I'd like to thank our sponsors, Dual Bus Design, Excelsior Games and Comics, and Sound G Entertainment. See you out there, guys.